Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
A man bitten by a police dog during an arrest plans to sue the San Diego Police Department. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says that his attorney is calling it an excessive use of force.
The lawsuit stems from an incident on the night of October 24th. The San Diego Police Department says officers were responding to a 911 call about a man who threatened a woman with a gun. There is bystander video of the arrest. KPBS is not showing the video due to its graphic nature. It shows the man, Marcus Evans, walking out of a house with his hands raised, wearing no shirt and no shoes. Police say officers repeatedly ordered him to surrender, but he did not. They say officers used 3 beanbag rounds and a canine to take him into custody.
While Mr. Evans was on the ground in the fetal position, hands up, saying, "Please don't shoot me. Somebody help me. They're shooting me." They continue to shoot him 2 more times. And then not only do they shoot him 2 more times, but they deploy the canine officers twice.
Pride describes Evans' behavior as passive resistance. The police department's procedure on the use of force defines passive resistance as a refusal to comply with verbal commands and does not convey a threat of physical resistance to the officer or another person. It says police may use canines and extended-range impact weapons to control an actively resisting subject believed to have access to a deadly weapon.
The guy didn't even have on socks. You can clearly see he was unarmed. What more did you want him to do? You got 8 officers right there. Nobody could walk up and cuff him up.
Police arrested Evans on suspicion of assault with a deadly weapon and resisting arrest. The department says no weapon was found and he was not booked into jail. Pride says the beanbag rounds and dog injured Evans' chest, stomach, shin, and arm during the arrest. He's been unable to return to work.
We're going to be asking, obviously, for monetary damages to compensate Mr. Evans for the pain and suffering that obviously comes from this type of conduct. And we're also going to be asking for the court to put an injunction against the San Diego Police Department that says they're not allowed to use these canine officers on people that are on the ground.
The San Diego Police Department declined an interview request. In a statement on Friday, the department said it was investigating the incident, including reviewing the bystander video, body-worn camera footage, and witness statements. Police Chief Scott Wall said he was, quote, committed to exploring how the situation could have been handled differently. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Well, as we head into the weekend, I will be tracking some nice weather here over the next couple of days. Sunny skies, but as we head into the weekend, we will start to see some chillier conditions, especially across the coast here for the rest of the week, heading into your Saturday and Sunday. But overall, I'm going to be tracking mild, breezy, and nice weather here setting up for us. How nice is it going to be? I'll detail that updated forecast coming up.
In this week's Why It Matters segment, our Public Matters partner Scott Lewis looks at election fallout, specifically how the election of Donald Trump will impact local races.
Republicans across the country are obviously pleased with last week's election. Donald Trump is going back to the White House. But in San Diego County, the Republican Party could be headed for a new low. A few weeks ago, right here, I talked about the key test Republicans faced in San Diego. Conservative and business groups spent more than $2 million supporting Kevin Faulconer for county supervisor. If he won, Republicans would have taken back control of the County Board of Supervisors. But Democrats had a trump card. Here's an ad from the Laborers Union.
Now that he's running for supervisor, Kevin Faulconer is hoping you forget that he embraced Donald Trump. That even after the January 6th insurrection, Faulconer defended his own vote for Trump.
The test was this. Would that be enough to sink Faulconer? Despite the millions spent in support of him, the blistering ads against incumbent Tara Lawson-Remer, and the problems in San Diego County, it looks like it was. Faulconer's supporters tried desperately to counter it. Here's an ad from the Community Leadership Coalition.
After voting for Kamala, don't forget, vote for Kevin.
Now we know that a few voters did just that, but not even close to enough. Right now, here are the margins in District 3. Kamala Harris got 62% of the vote. Trump got 38% of the vote. The margin was 24 points. This isn't as high as the 29 points that Biden won the same areas by, but it's still a lot to overcome. Faulconer ran 7 points ahead of Donald Trump, but he essentially needed to do twice as well as he did. Trump seems to be slightly more popular in San Diego than he was in 2020, but it appears voter antipathy toward him is going to continue to hurt local Republicans for years to come. I'm Scott Lewis, and that's why it matters.
And this story is part of our Public Matters partnership with Voice of San Diego and iNewsSource. You can find all of our coverage of local politics and civic engagement online at kpbs.org/Public Matters. Roughly 8 million young people became eligible to vote for the first time in 2024, and data is showing that those voters were more likely to identify as conservative and Republican than in 2020. KPBS Gloria Penner fellow Elaine Alfaro spoke to local young voters about their decisions.
Did Brat become a central component to the Harris campaign? And is Brat summer over?
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cats.
Kamala Harris's Brat Summer moment and audio remixes of the candidates' speeches took social media by storm this election season. Ads on Instagram and text campaigns vied for voters' attention and support. But two young voters in San Diego aim to cut through that noise to make informed decisions about voting.
I know it's like the algorithm is feeding me what they want me to see, so I kind of couldn't put media into the factor here. It kind of had to be like what I've seen based off of like real life scenario.
That was Grace Chavez, a 19-year-old voter originally from Nevada. She voted for Donald Trump this election season, but says neither candidate was a top choice.
Like when faced with two evils, choose neither. But I didn't really feel like I could do that. I felt like I had to go with somebody, so ultimately I decided to vote for Trump because I sided with him a little bit more.
Like many other young voters who turned out for Trump, some of her reasons were inflation and the economy.
Being a college student now and just seeing how the prices have gone up dramatically for everything, and then like going to the grocery store and just seeing how much it costs, like even just for the little things that I need, just like, you know, snacks and everything, it's just gone up a lot compared to 4 years ago.
The Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement found that 40% of youth selected the economy and jobs as a top voting issue. Abortion and reproductive rights was the second highest issue. It was one that informed Shiloh Catterton's vote.
I think that this election was very personal for a lot of groups of people. And even if the Republican Party was voting on the economy, there were other factors that were at stake.
Catterton, a 21-year-old originally from Texas, voted for Vice President Kamala Harris.
I think these results, this outcome might not be what I was hoping for. It might not be what I thought was going to happen by any means, but I think it reflects the fact that the Democratic Party has not been connecting with the communities it's supposed to serve.
Both Chavez and Catterton say their family's political views had a strong impact on the issues that they care about. Chavez comes from a conservative background, while Catterton's is liberal. In the days after the election, Catterton is navigating how to move forward. She's worried about how the Trump administration will handle women's and LGBTQ+ rights.
But I think that there needs to be a moment for people to first feel these emotions, because even if a statement doesn't apply to you, it might to someone else. And those were very cruel things that have been said during this political campaign. And they've been very demeaning.
But both are interested in talking to people who have different views, to find common ground and solutions. That's something almost everyone can agree will be good for the entire country. Elaine Alfaro, KPBS News.
Former San Diego police officer Larry Turner conceded today in the race for San Diego mayor. He made the announcement on X this morning. He said, in part, the campaign was more than a political race. It was a movement which proved that we can overcome the factors that divide us and instead focus on what unites us. He also congratulated Mayor Todd Gloria on his re-election. A new index out today and watched closely by the Federal Reserve shows the prices consumers pay for most goods and services ticked up last month. One economic expert says this inflation hiccup could pale in comparison to what's ahead under a new administration. Laura Aguirre reports.
The Consumer Price Index out this morning from the Labor Department shows a 0.2% rise last month, which is a 2.6% increase year over year. The October reading is also a slight step back from the Fed's long-held goal of 2%.
Our policy stance, strength in the economy and the labor market can be maintained, with inflation moving sustainably down to 2%.
Chairman Jerome Powell announced another quarter-point drop last week, right after the presidential election.
We've learned from the election just how toxic inflation and high prices and high interest rates are to the American people.
Economist Larry Summers served as Treasury Secretary in the Clinton administration and is the former director of the National Economic Council.
The Fed has been in too much of a hurry to cut interest rates and much too much of a hurry to promise future interest rate cuts.
While Summers has concerns about the pace of Powell's strategy, many consumers had been waiting for a drop in rates to make things like homes, vehicles, and credit cards less expensive. Taking a closer look at the CPI numbers, energy costs appeared to stay steady after a string of recent monthly declines. Used vehicle prices jumped 2.7%, and airline fares also climbed 3.2%. One drop in something most of us use every week, gas prices, down nearly 0.1 of a percentage point across all fuel types. I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
The COVID pandemic did so much damage in so many ways, and that included significant downturns in business and civic life in downtown areas throughout the state. KPBS reporter John Carroll says downtown San Diego is part of a new effort to boost downtown areas across California.
You've made a number of changes to our zoning code downtown in the last few years.
Assemblymember Matt Haney does not represent downtown San Diego, not even close. He represents District 17, right in the heart of San Francisco. But he was in our downtown area today to get a first-hand look at how downtown's recovery is progressing post-pandemic. Haney chairs the legislature's Select Committee on Downtown Recovery.
We removed the height limit.
The Downtown San Diego Partnership took Haney on a tour of one square block of downtown this morning. The partnership is a 30-year-old group funded primarily by businesses in what's called the Property and Business Improvement District. There were a couple of stops along the way. Here at Symphony Hall at the Jacobs Music Center, Haney heard about a downtown success story, the renovation of Symphony Hall.
We've got to give people a reason to come into downtown. We've got to make sure they feel safe, that they know that they have a place that they can park. And what we're hearing here is that San Diego has a lot of examples where that's working right now. And I think the Symphony is one of them.
The tour continued along C Street and a stop at Resident Brewery, where owner Marty Oakes had suggestions for Haney.
Find that fair balance of you're going to give us something, you ask for something, and we have to prove that we did it. You know, I think that's fair from a government group, passive private sector group, that this isn't free.
Along the way, Haney saw downtown San Diego faces the same challenges as other downtowns, getting unsheltered folks off the street, dealing with mental health challenges in that population. Afterward, he said he learned a lot.
San Diego has a lot to share in terms of how to bring a downtown back with tourism and hospitality and events. But all of that is not enough unless we also address the other big things that need to happen, making it easier to build housing, making sure it's clean and safe, and addressing homelessness.
From the Downtown Partnership, appreciation for Haney's visit.
To be able to have state investment, not just from our local assembly members, but from assembly members up and down the state, right? To have him understand that perspective was really critical for us as we move forward for success here in downtown.
Assemblymember Haney still has a couple of more downtowns to visit before heading back to Sacramento for the start of the next legislative session in January. He says he'll take what he's learned from these visits to allow the state to better help downtowns, or in some cases get out of the way, so California's city centers can reach their full potential. John Carroll, KPBS News.
A proposed 213-unit high-rise in Pacific Beach is getting pushback from residents. The Pacific Beach Planning Committee is set to vote tonight whether it's in favor of the project. It would only offer 74 units to live in. 10 would be for medium-income and low-income tenants. The other 139 units planned for the project would be hotel rooms. The chair of the committee says it's not fair use of bonus density laws, which allows high-rises if they meet certain standards.
And so this is just going to inflate land values. And because of that, the apartments or condos that they make are also going to be unaffordable because all of the square footage values are going to go way up as well.
And the meeting begins at 6:30 p.m. at the Earl Bertie Taylor Library. For 30 years, the California Center for the Arts Foundation has managed the Arts Center in Escondido, but that could all change because of the city's budget deficit. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne says the city is now looking for proposals from new managers.
The California Center for the Arts has been a North County hub for culture, art, performances, and community.
This was a house that Escondido built. It was very specifically minded for community-centered events, community-centered celebrations, you name it.
Jesse Gonzalez is the Community Advancement Manager with the center.
It's a 1,500-seat European-style concert hall, a smaller theater of 400 seats where we get to see a whole slew of different performances take place in.
The California Center for the Arts Foundation has managed their programming for the last 30 years. But that tenure could come to an end. The city of Escondido is looking for a new manager for the center as it tries to close an $11 million budget gap. They started the search after a review found the center was running at a loss a few years ago. Gonzalez says COVID had a lot to do with that.
Part of our mission statement was bringing people together, and if you can't bring people together for a substantial amount of time, the mission not necessarily tends to creep, but it's harder to get into those communities or build bridges into those communities if that's just something that you hadn't been able to do.
The city pays the foundation $600,000 a year to run the center, and they plan to undergo the application process to continue its work.
We're doing a lot of really great work here, and I feel like we're just getting started. So it'd be a shame, really, ultimately, at the end of the day, that this institution or these buildings would belong or go to someone else because we've been doing such a great job.
And the foundation laid the question on the community by hosting a town hall for feedback. Community members filled the concert hall Tuesday evening to ask questions, provide feedback, and learn more about the work of the foundation.
Really, we need to fill these buildings. Empty buildings do us no good. The goal is to keep them filled, to keep them activated, and that really will bring a whole new sense of belonging and create that third space we all desire.
There have been interested applicants to run the Center for the Arts, and a decision will be made by the City Council next year. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Well, apparently we're now in the official holiday shopping season, at least according to Adobe Analytics, and researchers there say that they expect record online spending. Here's Karen Kafo with a look at how much higher the spending could be and a way that shoppers are increasingly choosing to pay.
We've seen the buy now, pay later bandwagon revving up over the last couple of holiday seasons, but at least one projection this year expects a BNPL boom. If you're not familiar, think of it as a modern twist on layaway, made easier by online retail, but with some potential pitfalls.
It's hard sometimes. It's just hard.
Bella Canales is a Dallas mom of 3 who works full-time, as does her husband, and she says money is tight.
I actually make pretty decent money, but my goodness, when life hits hard. And it feels like when it rains, it pours.
Bella often uses buy now, pay later, or BNPL, loans which allow for short-term payoffs.
I've used it, I know, twice now at Walmart, Affirm to be exact, to buy my groceries because it's easier to do that than put it on an already maxed out credit card.
Buy now, pay later allows consumers to purchase goods on an installment basis and interest-free typically.
Adobe's 2024 online holiday shopping survey predicts record buying with this method.
We're expecting about $18.5 billion to be processed through buy now, pay later, and that's just over 11% year-on-year growth.
The Federal Reserve Bank of New York found financially stable buyers choose BNPL to avoid paying interest and for convenience. Financially fragile buyers for credit and affordability. Adobe found most people wanted to free up cash or buy something they couldn't otherwise afford.
We do see average order values for buy now, pay later tend to be higher, and ultimately it allows people to kind of stretch the bounds of their budget.
I just would choose it over credit cards any day.
Bella Canale says her holiday shopping will include buying now, paying later, putting off paying until tomorrow what she can get today. Adobe Analytics forecasts that Cyber Monday will be the biggest day ever for buy now, pay later, with estimates for those transactions expected just shy of the $1 billion mark. Experts advise that those using BNPL loans this holiday season keep track of what you owe and where. Unpaid loans that get turned over to a debt collector could ding your credit score. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
As we head into tonight, I will be tracking some low clouds near the coast with overnight lows in the mid to upper 40s. So a little bit of a cooler start. Across the rest of the southwest and southern California, you can see 38 tonight, a pretty chilly start for Oceanside and Camp Pendleton. We'll also see a mix of 30s and 40s here for the rest of the areas, including 46 tonight down south in Chula Vista. As we head into the overnight hours, lots of clear skies here for us, but by 8:30 tomorrow morning Pacific time, you can start to see some of that cloud coverage off the coast, but overall no weather-related delays to slow down that morning drive time. By lunchtime, we're still going to see lots of sunshine, but during the late afternoon hours, we will start to see more and more cloud coverage filtering in its way from the coast, even some showers and snowfall across the elevated portions of the Rockies. But overall, as we head into your Friday evening, conditions or Friday morning conditions will be nice. So across San Diego County here for tomorrow, your Thursday, lots of sunshine, increasing cloud coverage here as we head into the afternoon hours. Temperatures will be a mix of upper 60s to mid 70s. So overall, pretty mild, pretty pleasant conditions. As far as your 5-day extended forecast goes, here for the coast, we'll see temperatures in the 70s on Thursday, but a cool down moves in here starting on Friday. We'll see temperatures a mix of mid to upper 60s. Look at those lows, however. They'll be dipping into the 40s, even 30s for morning temperatures on Saturday morning, so heads up for that for the weekend. As we head inland, your inland forecast, we'll see lots of sunshine for Thursday and Friday. Temperatures once again taking a drop on Friday. We'll even see some 30s for morning lows on the weekend, with a couple of shower chances possible on Saturday. As we look at the mountainous regions, more showers on the forecast on Friday, with that cool down really moving in on Saturday. We'll barely see temperatures getting above freezing. And then across the desert, we'll see temperatures starting to drift off some as we head into the weekend, with morning lows in the 40s and afternoon highs a mix of 60s and 70s.
Well, with the holidays approaching, thousands of us will take to the road. There's one spot along the San Diego and Imperial County line that is sure to get some attention, and it's been a fascinating spot for decades. And Ken Kramer shows us why in this story about San Diego.
If you like great views, here's a wonderful site with a great view of the desert. Desert View. 60 and more years ago, you stopped here to have a break and cool your brakes and walk over to see the Desert View. In the world of roadside attractions, the Desert View Tower was a classic. And still is. California Historical Monument number 939 in the Incapah Mountains near Jacumba and Ocotillo. It's a throwback to the days before automobile air conditioning, when you just had to pull the station wagon off the long highway so the kids could get out and climb up the Desert View Tower. Tourists used to write their name in a book.
These are a treasure.
From Chula Vista to Chicago, they signed in pencil just to prove they were here and had climbed the Desert Tower and seen the view. Used to cost 25 cents back in the day. Kids were a dime plus 2 pennies tax to go up the tower. We found the circular ground floor to be a combination museum, curio shop, and occasional yoga studio. Really, a little bit of everything. the stairs we go, just like excited tourists have since the tower was built in the 1920s. Each landing offers more random things to see, and out the window, a hint of the view that awaits when we get to the top, and get to the top we will. But just in case you're wondering who built this and why, well, Mr. Bert Vaughn was a road and hotel developer, and his road work crews camped out up here at 3,000 feet where it was a little bit cooler. He and they, rock by rock, assembled it, and then, what's that? Right on the same property, rock sculptures started appearing, all kinds of strange carvings done by an unemployed engineer named Mayoral Ratcliffe, who it is said was paid $1 a day and a jug of wine. Along with the tower, his folk art boulder park has been a climb-around attraction ever since. Meantime, in the tower, there are more steps, more collected things to see, including works of art on display inspired by the place itself. Up and up until the observation deck and a view out over the desert that on a clear day can reach to the Salton Sea and the sand dunes of Algodones, 100 miles or more. It's hard to know what will become of the tower 20, 50, or 100 years from now. It's changed ownership a couple of times in its long history, always seeming for a few dollars admission to survive as the kind of picture postcard roadside attraction that dotted desert highways in the 40s and 50s. But as the afternoon shadows lengthen over the desert below, it's not hard to imagine years from now that people will still be seeing that sign along the interstate and say, Desert View Tower. Let's go see it. Sounds like something interesting about San Diego.
Oh, that's so cool. And if you want to see more of Ken Kramer's stories about San Diego, be watching for his half-hour show every Thursday night, 8 o'clock, right here on KPBS. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.